Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. If you're joining live, I'm so excited to have you here today because we have an amazing giveaway. So I'll get into that in a second. If you are not joining us live, do not worry. You can have your questions answered by our expert. I always tag them if you, or you can tag them if you have any questions. Of course, you can always head over to the website. That's why I have their website in the lower third there. And also, there's kind of like a win of a giveaway because if you pre-order or if it's after May and the book is already available and you're watching this, if you grab the book, you can still get the checklist. And I think that's going to be so amazing. So thank you for joining. We will dive right in. And if you do share any questions, awesome. Thank you. We will get those answered. I might not answer them in the exact moment that you're asking the question, just so that we can allow our guest a little train of thought, but I will certainly ask those, and we have a couple that you have submitted already, so I will make sure to answer those, or get the answers to those, to ask those at the end. And just a final thing, if you're watching on YouTube and you like what you're seeing, please give us a thumbs up, and also whether it's here on Facebook or on YouTube, if you like this topic and you love the information, please share it. We do these for free because we want to help get that information out there. I always say this expert interview series is super selfish because I have a lot of questions and I want to go to the experts and ask them. But we also, really with the mission of trying to help practitioners, experts, and clients and patients, everybody to connect around the same topic. That's why we're doing this. So without further ado, our guest today, Karman Meyer, and so fun, I found out that she spent some time in Ohio. So we were just having a little Ohio chat. And we are going to talk about sleep. And, we all know that we feel better when we get good sleep. But today we really want to dive into really why it's so much better for you to get good sleep, what that good sleep is, what some of those nutrients are. And she has this new book that is going to be such a phenomenal resource for you, whether you're a practitioner or patient. Those of us that are practitioners are also patients, so it'll be great on that part. And Karman, I thought I always like to have you, first of all, introduce yourself. So we'll talk a little bit about your background, kind of how you got to where you are today. But also, one of the things that we'll do, and it'll be my second set of questions, is just sort of the lexicon of better nutrition, so that we make sure that we're all, when we use words like sleep, or we talk about things that everybody is understanding what we're talking about. So starting off, you are a dietitian. When you were growing up, did you want to be a dietitian? How did you decide to be a dietitian? Let's start there.
Yes, so I don't think I really knew until high school that I wanted to be a dietitian, because that was the first time I heard that word. But I always knew growing up that I loved food, I loved cooking, and I was fascinated by all things science, but specifically just how food actually helped our bodies. And I always would eat, my breakfast in the morning, and I would actually sit and read the nutrition label. Like, that was the most important or most interesting thing to me on the box. So definitely a food nerd from the get-go.
Awesome. And you've had as a path as a dietitian, you've worked in a number of different areas. So maybe take us through, because I think your experience certainly layers into the whole notion of why we need sleep to help the body do all these things. Yeah.
Yes. So after my dietetic internship, I wasn't quite sure which direction I would go. Honestly, it was kind of just whatever would be a full-time job opportunity. But I did work in clinical, did some outpatient counseling, so weight management, diabetes, and then I went to long-term care, so working in a skilled nursing facility, and I did food service management as well as the clinical responsibilities, so seeing patients and making sure they were eating enough or just healing appropriately. And then I focused more in behavioral health. So I went back to Vanderbilt and worked there in one of their hospitals, specifically for behavioral health, and I did some outpatient group counseling there, which I really enjoyed, the group setting. And now I actually work more in marketing and public relations, so totally different from what I had been doing all the other years. But throughout all of that, I've always had my blog, thenutritionadventure.com, where I've shared my love of cooking and just creating new recipes and developing my writing skills. So writing and cooking, as I said, they've always been passions of mine. And I just think, everything that I've learned from past jobs, plus my writing on my own time for the blog and other media outlets, it's just all culminated and eventually led to writing this book.
Yay. So give us you were just telling me it showed up in the mail. Like for any of us who have written anything, oh my gosh, congratulations. So I'm so excited about Eat to Sleep. And in fact, somebody is going to win it. So in order to win the Eat to Sleep, just comment on how many hours of sleep we need a night. So just go ahead and put that in the comment section and we will pick a winner. So let's dive right in on that. So I think one of the important things just is, I was mentioning this lexicon, right? And so I think sometimes what people don't know when it comes to sleep is really what is happening when our body sleeps. And if you can also talk about, because I think this is a piece of like what it means to have good sleep, whether that's, talking about the different layers or, just sort of what our goal is from a sleep standpoint.
Yes. So I won't try to give away the answer for the giveaway just yet. But yes, there's, a certain amount of sleep we all need. And a third of Americans are not getting adequate sleep on a consistent basis. So, there are 5 stages of sleep that we go through each night. And as you get deeper and deeper into those levels, it becomes really more of a restorative process. So on a nightly basis, we really do want to be reaching the stages 4 and 5 of sleep where we can do our healing. And that's where our memory consolidation happens. So, everything that kind of happens during the day or new information you take in, memories, that gets internalized when we are sleeping. So it's really important that we reach those stages. And unfortunately, aging actually works against us in that we have less time in those deeper stages of sleep as we get older, but we can try to fight that off and, do our best to maintain healthy sleep through diet and exercise and just being mindful before bedtime, making time for relaxing activities to wind down at the end of the day.
And, someone actually asked, they sent it in as a question before the interview, which I thought was a great question. They said, how does our sleep, if I take a nap, we've heard naps are great for us. So if I take a nap, how does my sleep differ there versus the sleep that I am getting or should be getting in the evening?
That's a great question. I think napping is one of those things that it works for some people, may not work for other people, because I've met several people who've said, if I'm going to nap, it has to be like a 4-hour long process. And that is really a little too long for napping. For most people, I don't think we have the 4 hours to spare in the middle of the day. Plus, that could interfere with sleeping well at night. So, if you're like me, though, I'm a great cat napper. I can take a 20, maybe 30-minute nap and wake up and feel great. I'm ready to attack things again. So, I wouldn't try to force napping, number one, if you think it's going to have to last more than an hour. But, it does have its benefits, and I think that's just where we should listen to our bodies. And if you really feel like you need that extra little bit of time to kind of refresh during the middle of the day, it's fine. You may not reach those deeper stages of sleep. Most likely you will not. But that's not a bad thing. As long as you are getting that at some point during the day, at nighttime, hopefully, that you're reaching all 5 stages of sleep.
Awesome.
And the interesting thing to kind of note on those stages is that we don't just go stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then that's it. We cycle through the stages. So you can hit stage 4 and 5, come back to stage 2 or 3 possibly, and go back into stages 4 and 5. So it's a cyclical process.
Yeah. It's fascinating because some of the apps now, like the rings and things like that, they'll actually show you. So I think that's helpful or maybe stressful, depending. And hi, Carly. And Alicia is reminding me because she answered, you guys were doing a live giveaway. So the question to answer in the comments is, how many hours do you need to sleep a night? What's the recommended amount of hours to sleep? And you could be entered to win Eat to Sleep, which is amazing. All right. So I know that we're going to go through this part quickly. I know we don't have to convince anyone that we need to sleep to feel better. However, from a clinical level, from an evidence-based dietitian, there are some reasons that when we look at disease and our risk for disease, so I just want to have you highlight those, because I do think it's really important for us to really understand that, that how you sleep is going to affect your risk and certainly severity of some of these diseases. So why don't you run through those just real quickly?
Yeah, so our sleep, what we eat on a daily basis, and how we're managing stress, they're all interrelated. So when one of those areas starts to suffer, the others are most likely sure to follow. And, for instance, we might think about being stressed out. Usually people have foods that they go to immediately when they're stressed out. And they're not always the most nutrient-dense foods, right? Not saying we shouldn't eat them and enjoy them in moderation, but anyway, so we don't want to be stressed out plus eating the foods that aren't providing our body with great nutrition, because then that can impact our sleep at night. And then when we're not sleeping well at night, we're more likely to wake up and possibly make, again, not the best food choices to give our body all the nutrients it needs in a daily time frame. And you can see how the cycle might continue. And when we're not sleeping well, we have less energy. We probably won't hit the gym as regularly. And so, again, the cycle continues. Yeah. But the great thing is you change one of those, and, again, they are sure to follow. So, but they've found with poor sleep, it's been connected with increased anxiety, possibly even depression in some people, and insulin resistance. So there's a lot of newer research coming out about how not sleeping enough can impact our insulin levels and then possibly lead to diabetes, even cardiovascular disease. And as I was saying, with all of these things being interrelated, if you're not sleeping well, you may be more stressed, you're not always choosing the best foods, and all of these things can possibly lead to other comorbidities down the road.
Yeah. So, as we said, it's like, and that can even be stressful, to think about, like, especially if you're somebody who's not sleeping, or maybe you're somebody who's waking up in the middle of the night and you're saying, like, oh my gosh, that's actually a factor for me. And so now I'm stressed out about the fact because I'm thinking it's setting me up for disease. And that actually links us in before we are going to dive into the foods, the nutrients, the tips. But we had a question about waking up at about 3 a.m. for a couple of hours. If that's happening, do you try to force yourself to go back to sleep, or do you take a nap during the day? Or said even differently, is there a way to start working on why I'm waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning? What might that be signaling that I need to address?
Yeah, so in my book, I have a food sleep log where people can track the changes that they're making, because everyone is so different. And I can only speak for myself. I know that if I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night, it is always at 3 a.m., number one. But I'm more likely to wake up in the middle of the night if I have not been exercising consistently, maybe 3 times a week, or if I've had a glass of wine too late in the evening. So those are my things that trigger me to not sleep well. And that's what I've discovered in, just kind of journaling, being mindful of things I'm doing throughout the day. And that's where journaling and maybe using a log just for a couple of weeks can really help you see maybe trends or certain foods that you chose that specific day when you then didn't sleep well at night.
Yeah. I've heard also, too, I remember somebody saying, our circadian rhythm, like our 3 p.m. and our 3 a.m., 3 p.m. is always when we're like, oh my gosh, I'm crashing, or often, not always, that's when I need chocolate or sugar, and 3 a.m. is when I bolt wide awake. And a lot of times it has to do with hormones, but there is a rhythm to that part. So as you said, it may be affecting, and Suzanne was sharing, it's around caffeine and light exposure, what's age got to do with it, what's hormones got to do with it. So because of that, let's let's dive right into what foods, and then specifically, because we know that our body actually, it's not about foods, it's actually about nutrients, because we can have foods that no longer contain the amount of nutrients that we need. So let's start off talking about what nutrients does the body need for better sleep, and then we'll talk about how to find them in foods. And I would love to ask you about supplements too. So
yes. So the first one that comes to mind is magnesium because, well, it does play a very important role in our sleep cycles, but also because many Americans are deficient in this mineral. So I really think if we can look at magnesium sources in our food, we can do a better job of, or we can hopefully experience some improved sleep benefits from that. So magnesium is definitely one that's at the top of my list. Vitamin B6, which you'll find in whole grains and some seeds. We want to make sure we're having plenty of our B-complex vitamins, but vitamin B6 is very important. And then also potassium. Potassium's important for our electrolyte balance, and I think we underestimate how much hydration status can impact our sleep as well. So making sure that we're hydrated throughout the day, and potassium and magnesium play a role in our electrolyte balances, which all fits into hydration overall. So those are
I will say at the Better Nutrition Program, the number one tool that practitioners are using, which I'm so glad about, is the magnesium evaluation, because you were talking about it. It's like that, the statistics right now are 70% of Americans aren't meeting their magnesium, and your body has to decide then, with the magnesium that I have, am I going to, what muscles am I going to relax, or what am I going to turn off? But I think I love that you were pointing out potassium, because we're just on the cusp. And what's interesting is we only need about 400 maybe milligrams of magnesium, but it's 4,700 milligrams of potassium. So I'm going to be so excited to talk about the food part, because, everybody says eat a banana, and you're like, okay, a banana only has 400 milligrams, and we've got to get to 4,700. So I think that's interesting, because so when we're talking about potassium, magnesium, really what you're talking about are the minerals. So where do you suggest people go? How do you incorporate or upgrade your diet to get more of those minerals in?
Well, fruits and vegetables, and I know dietitians probably sound like broken records when we say this. Yeah. But, I mean, you can't deny what's there. So having plenty of color on your plate, or reaching for a fruit or vegetable at snack time is so important, and really will make such a difference, not just for sleep, but in all aspects of health. You're going to get the fiber. You'll probably get a good source of water as well, contributing to that hydration status, and again, your potassium, a plethora of other vitamins and minerals from our fruits and veggies.
And I think that's important too, because, when you juice, you can lose a lot of the minerals, right? You might keep the vitamins, but you lose. So I think the form, you were noting that. I think the form, hi, Bob, nice to see you. The form is really important. So let's talk for a second about some of the dietary trends, So for example, keto or paleo, or people who are low carb, you were mentioning B6. So, are we meant to be concerned then about how we're getting in these nutrients in terms of based on our dietary choices? So said differently, could our new diet trend that's helping us lose weight or do whatever it's doing actually be interfering with our sleep?
Yeah, and I have thought about that a lot. I don't have any great studies to show, because, the whole paleo, keto diet, low carb, or, very low carb, I should say, those diet trends are still pretty new. And I don't think we have enough information to really show this is what will happen. But from what I know about sleep and the nutrients we need for it, I can only imagine that, yes, it will interfere with quality sleep down the road. All of these nutrients that we've mentioned, magnesium and potassium and B6, calcium is another important one that we didn't mention earlier, but we need those as tools in our nutrition toolbox so that our body can use them when it needs it.
Mm-hmm. So just a reminder to everyone, a giveaway. I think Bob's joined us a little bit, and Suzanne, etc. Just make sure you tell us. So in order to win the book, Eat to Sleep, you just need to enter today while we're live how much sleep you need to get, how much sleep it's recommended that one gets in order to have their better sleep for that evening, etc. So just that number is what we're looking for. So this is interesting too. Somebody asked me a question. I always love when you guys send me the questions ahead of time because it really helps me plot the interview. Somebody asked me about, so if these nutrients, calcium, magnesium, potassium, B6, we're talking about the foods that they're found in. You were mentioning fruits and vegetables. We talked about nuts and seeds. We'll get into the whole grain discussion, but we were talking about, what if you're on a very low carb diet, you might be avoiding these. Is there any evidence that when you eat them during the day is associated with that? Like, so for example, do you need to eat these foods that are rich in magnesium, potassium, calcium, B6, like before bed, or is it about getting that quantity in during the day?
It's really more about getting that quantity in during the day. As I said, it's just having the right tools in your toolbox ready to go when your body needs to, grab them and make use of them. So while things like potassium and calcium can help before bed, especially if you're really prone to muscle cramping, if you've woken up with a Charlie horse, then you probably need to increase your potassium. So yes, those nutrients, we could incorporate a snack maybe before bedtime, hour before, that has those nutrients. But for the most part, it's really just more important from day to day or week to week even, because I'm not perfect and I'm not reaching my nutrient needs for every vitamin and mineral every single day. But when I look over a week's time, hopefully I've met what I need to for the week.
Mm-hmm. And that's a great lead into supplements because, we always want to look at our total nutrition, right? What's going in and on our body most often. And so do you find that supplements are a favorable way to help somebody achieve those, or could supplements actually be interfering with your sleep?
I can't speak to whether or not supplements would necessarily be interfering with sleep, but my rule is always food first and then supplements, because the great thing about food, or nutrient-dense foods, is that all of the nutrients in there working together, they have a synergistic effect. Things that cannot be replicated in a supplement. Usually a vitamin or a supplement, it's one specific element or whatever it is, and that's all you're getting. Whereas when you eat a banana, you're getting so much more. As we mentioned, we're getting the fiber as well, and the carbohydrates, and then the potassium. So you just get so much more from our foods than we can from the supplements. Now, I know that for traveling purposes, people may rely on melatonin to take to help with jet lag. And I certainly think that things like that have a time and a place to really be a friend to you to help you sleep. So maybe in the short term, to initially get started, sure.
Yeah, and I have had a few people where they take their multi in the evening, and the B vitamins in there, as you were talking about, B6 is so great, but the whole B complex might be more energizing. So somebody may, if they're worried about that factor, they may want to look at when they're actually getting in those nutrients. As you said, it can be a higher dose or a more concentrated amount. So I think that's important. So let's look at the things that, there's a lot of information out there about, like, oh, you can't have caffeine, it's bad for your sleep, or, you shouldn't eat 3 hours before bed. But a lot of people will turn around and say, like, hold the phone, this isn't realistic for me. Maybe I went and worked out, and even should you work out in the evening? So I've had other people have said, like, I couldn't get my workout during the day. I worked out in the evening, but then it's harder for me to go to sleep. So talk to me a little bit about what are some of the things that are good behaviors before bed, and some of the things that you might want to have on the alert side. And then let's definitely talk about caffeine. So it's like a two-for question there. Okay.
So as far as exercise in the evening time, again, it's very personalized. I'm going to perform better when I exercise at night, and then I sleep like a baby.
Okay.
But that's not true for everyone. So if you find that too much activity in the evening is maybe keeping you up at night, then try to move that to a different time during the day. Or maybe choose a different type of activity, yoga, one that's maybe a little more calming. Again, that's where I think journaling or keeping some kind of log of your activities during the day, what you did before bedtime, the 2 hours before, what you had to eat, and then how well you slept. And also any stressors during your day, because we can't deny that certain things weigh on us heavily and might be interfering with our sleep. So did I answer the first question?
100%. I think the other question people have is like, light and eating and like all the things that, there are so many rules around what to do. And so I love the overarching theme of today is do the journal, which she's got a journal in the new book. And if you want to win the new book, make sure that you enter here how many hours we're supposed to get of sleep in the evening. And I think that whole notion of the personalization. But are there any myths about, eating at night or about, I think also things that intuitively make sense of, putting your devices away or things that you do before bed. So what's kind of good behavior before bed to help us sleep better?
Yeah, so I'm a full supporter of having some kind of bedtime routine, that is maybe 30 minutes before you hit the sack or even up to an hour, just something that is more relaxing, calming. The screens, they can certainly interfere with our circadian rhythm and the melatonin production. So if you're going to be on any kind of screen, they have the blue light filters on some devices. So definitely make use of that. But if you can, at least turn off TV, computer, phones 30 minutes before bed. For me personally, I don't have an issue snacking an hour before bedtime. I mean, last night I had a cup of hot tea, caffeine-free, and then also a few almonds, and almonds are actually listed in my book. They have magnesium. So, just a smaller snack, and that's probably what we need to look at most. Snacking before bedtime is not the worst thing in the world. It's how much we're eating and what we're eating. So in the book, I also give several great bedtime snack options that include the foods listed in the book.
Can you give us three? Because I feel like people here, we're getting a bunch of hearts, and I think like, yes, okay, give me three things that I could have. I love the almonds with an herbal tea, so that's a great choice. Okay.
Yes, maybe a few whole grain crackers and an ounce of cheese, a couple slices of cheese. I suggest like a cheddar cheese or maybe Gouda, something, kind of light. And then popcorn, make popcorn either on the stovetop, or if you're going to do microwave popcorn, just go for one that's not already slathered in butter and salt. You can add your own toppings. Maybe you want to add some Parmesan cheese because cheese has the calcium and potassium that our body needs. And so popcorn is really a great snack. It's very filling. It can be light. It's
literally made my day. Like, so my popcorn routine is, and sometimes I'll actually just do it as my dinner, especially if as you mentioned, like if I worked out and I came home, but I love to drizzle olive oil and then I put hemp seeds on there, which are my version of, and my friend Tess, actually the blender girl, and I think we have her recipe on our site. She makes vegan Parmesan, which, when you talk about wanting to get the nutrients in different ways from hemp seeds. So that's like my go-to on top of the popcorn. But I was like, oh, I'm actually having it to improve my sleep. So thank you very much, Karman. Yeah.
You're welcome. Popcorn is my nighttime snack pretty often around here.
Great.
So.
Yeah. Awesome. Good. Okay, so let's talk about caffeine because you were talking about workouts, and for me, caffeine is really my pre-workout reward. So I let myself, I do my cortado or my espresso or my matcha, and then I do my workout. And we also know that we're all genetically, we have different sensitivity to caffeine. So just a reminder to everyone watching, these are general recommendations, and why Karman's book is so great and why getting the good good sleep checkup or checklist that we have if you pre-order her book is so valuable is you're really only going to know when you start tracking this personally, and any of her recommendations here are general. They're not specific to you. So we want to make sure we point that out. But let's talk a little bit about what the research says and what you talk about in your book as it relates to caffeine and sleep.
Yes, well, I wouldn't want anyone to take my coffee away or my matcha, so right. I'm not here to say that at all. But timing is very important, and as you said, everyone is different, and some people can maybe have caffeine up to 3 o'clock in the afternoon and then still be able to sleep okay. Others, that's not going to work well. Mm-hmm. So if you are currently maybe having coffee or caffeinated tea or even soda and dark chocolate for that matter, mm-hmm. dark chocolate has higher caffeine content than milk chocolate, although it's nowhere near a cup of coffee. Mm-hmm. But if you're very sensitive to caffeine, the caffeine in that chocolate may be interfering with sleep. And so I know sometimes people like to have maybe a glass of red wine and a few pieces of dark chocolate because we think, oh, it's great for my heart, mm-hmm. but it might not be so great for your sleep if you're having it too close to bedtime. Mm-hmm. So in the book, I have the chart of different beverages that have caffeine, and so you can get a sense of if you need a little caffeine kick in the afternoon to get over that 3 p.m. slump, choose something like a green tea that has a much lower caffeine level than a black tea or, again, your coffee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think one of the things, because I'm always like, I actually love my dark chocolate in the afternoon or right after lunch because the magnesium, like it's kind of a trade-off, right? You might get more dark chocolate. In dark chocolate, you might get more caffeine, but you're also getting more of that magnesium. But I've run into exactly the problem you were talking about. I thought at night it was just such a great idea to have a little dark chocolate with some cashews, and I'm very caffeine sensitive, and it was like, I was awake cleaning for a few more hours than I wanted to be on that part. So another question that somebody sent me over, and if this isn't involved from a book standpoint, but she's desperately trying to help her teenagers with their sleep. And so she just said, are sort of what we're talking about here, are they applicable to teens, or are there any winning tips to help teens with foods that can help them sleep better? She said her son in particular doesn't sleep well during the week and then sleeps like all weekend long. So is that okay? Like, is that catch-up sleep okay? Yeah.
Catch-up sleep, sadly, is not okay, and it's not going to really give our bodies what they really need during the week, because we did talk a little bit earlier about the memory consolidation, and that's happening on a nightly basis if we're reaching those deeper stages of sleep, and we should be. So if someone is struggling to sleep during the week but can sleep very well on the weekend, I would first want to know, what's the difference with what's happening. And there's just so many different things we can possibly look at. Mm-hmm. But, for a teenager studying possibly for school, or not sure if it's all the devices, of course, just being plugged in and looped in all the time in the world that we live in now, and it's so hard to unplug sometimes. But I would definitely look at technology and or what's being watched on TV before bed. But for teenagers, if they're open to a snack at night, which I think most teens probably would be, maybe the whole grain popcorn like we talked about, or just some kind of snack that's going to help with our sleep cycles, as we talked about before, cheese and crackers, popcorn, if they like hot tea, or even a mug of warm milk. I mean, that's something grandmothers used to do all the time. So that can be very soothing and calming. Again, just establishing some kind of bedtime routine is so important for our bodies. We like routines, and that will just signal to your mind that, hey, it's time for me to calm down. I know we're getting ready for bed. And so if that's like a bath, warm bath, cup of hot tea, or reading a book, I fall asleep so fast when I read a book in
Right.
bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so we're going to wrap up unless anyone has any last minute burning questions who's watching us live, but we have so much content here. And so let's go back to the answer for our giveaway. So how many hours and again, this is an average recommendation, but what is the hour that we should be shooting for on most nights?
So adults should be getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night.
Wow. Okay. So that is it. So we actually had, I would say of everyone watching, I think that most people, yeah. So we have, so we will pick a winner from, we've got Alicia, Suzanne, Bob. We've got about 5 people who answered and got the answer correct. What I probably should have asked is how many hours are you actually getting, right? So I think one of the things that, it's not meant to incur stress if you're not getting the 7 to 8, but I think it's important for us to work on that part. And in terms of, and Araceli's like, yes, exactly. We have to work a little bit more on getting those hours in. So just in terms of your next steps, I highly, highly recommend that you pre-order the book. I provided the link in the information in the show notes so that you can pop over there, because if you pre-order right now, Karman has it set up. It's so like one-stop shopping on her site, where you also get from, is it pronounced Testia tea or Testia? How do you pronounce?
Tiesta.
Tiesta, sorry, yeah.
With a T.
Yeah, okay, I had a little, for me, what I had going on there was a little dyslexia. Sorry, guys. So Tiesta tea, you actually get an herbal tea from them. You can choose, and you also get her checklist. So it's like this wonderful sleep package. Also, we're thinking about Mother's Day. So if you know someone that might benefit, that could be an awesome gift that you do right now. And then also, if you just have any questions for Karman that maybe you want to ask one-on-one, didn't feel like it was appropriate here, or want the privacy, just head over to thenutritionadventure.com. She actually ended up writing this book because a publisher saw the blog that she wrote, and it was such a thoughtful blog on sleep with all these great tips that she was sharing. So that's just a reminder, too, to check out her blog, because as we started off the conversation, that's an area where she's investing a lot of time and sharing tips as well these days. So Karman, thank you so much. This is awesome. We really enjoyed having you on here, and we will pick a winner, and we'll get that winner over to you so that we can get them their free book.
Thank you so much, Ashley. This has been wonderful, and I'm super excited to hear from people. So
great.